Hello, everyone, and we're live with another episode of Firebase After Hours. My name is Peter. I'm a developer advocate on the Firebase team, and I'll be joined in a moment by Nohe. But before we bring him on, just a quick recap about our code of conduct. So we are the Firebase community, so let's be excellent and respectful to each other. If you want to read the full code of conduct, you can go to firebase.google.com/community guidelines. If you have any questions throughout this live stream, please feel free to use the chat. So you can send us your questions or ask us to repeat something if something wasn't clear. We'll be monitoring this, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions as possible. And with that, let's bring on Nohe. Nohe, come on.
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going. I came super prepared for this live stream.
Nice.
So I'm going to start a new project today and add in a bunch of tools. That's my plan.
So I don't think that you came as prepared as I came.
No?
Yeah. So did you bring any tools?
No.
Look at that.
I mean, maybe. No, I just have like weights in the background.
All right, cool. So what are we going to do today?
So today my plan is to implement some tools, some map tools, right? So using like the Google Maps API, what are some like common features of that I really like? And then implement them in Genkit, so that way we can leave it to Gemini to call the tool function calls. So that way we can call the tools as we need them, right? So we can kind of leave it up to Gemini to be like, oh, this sounds like I could use a restaurants or geocoding or a reverse geocoding query to solve this user's request. So that's my goal for today.
Okay, that sounds cool. Should we maybe explain some of the things that you just mentioned in passing? Like as if everybody knows what they are.
Yeah, that would make sense, because I realize sometimes I just throw out jargon and I assume everybody lives in my head with me.
I'm like
right?
that too.
Yeah.
So maybe let's set the scene. So I know that you posted a video a couple of days ago, I think, where you showed how to look up the air quality for a specific location, I think, right?
Yeah, so there's air quality, there's also restaurants, and then there was one more that I did that was actually like relatively interesting, but it's escaping me right now.
Okay, so and tell me how you did that. I mean, like from a user's perspective. So if I come in as a user, what is the experience? So I have this application, and then I can just ask questions, right?
Yeah, so that's the plan. Is like you kind of have like this general application that you can ask questions to, and my goal was to have it be like a location awareness bot, right? So you could come in and ask, what's the air quality in Tracy, California, or something like that, right? And it would go and the tool would kind of draw this path and say, well, the air quality index API, I have that, and I would like to use that, but it requires that I know the coordinates of Tracy, California, the political boundary XY coordinates, right? So it would go and grab the latitude and longitude from the geocoding API. So first it would have to say, okay, let me go to the geocoding API, that's a mouthful, and try and grab the XY coordinates for Tracy, California. And then once I have those, let me forward those to the air quality index API to get back those values. And then let me take all this information and put it together and then return that result to the user. So I could say like the air quality index in Tracy is 45, which is excellent, right?
Yeah. Okay, and the challenge here is why you have to go through all those hoops is because you're using an LLM. So the user types something into an input field. You send that to the LLM, so the user might be asking, what's the air quality over there? And then the LLM, of course, has been trained on a huge training corpus, but it does not know what the current air quality in that location that the user is asking about is at the moment. So it needs to get some help in doing that. And this is why we need some sort of tooling so that the LLM can use that tool to get that specific piece of information.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I like to think of it as it takes my natural language request. So if I were to ask you like, what's the weather like today in Hamburg, Peter, you would like look outside or look at the
Nice.
thermostat or something, right?
Yeah,
And
I can't see it because the blinds are closed, but it's nice.
yeah, so you would go and you would check it like you know how to process that request, right? When you ask an
Yeah.
LLM to do that and it doesn't have a tool or anything, it's either going to look at its like corpus of knowledge that was trained on it. It might be like, well, historically, Peter says it's nice, so it must be nice out right now, right?
Yeah.
And if you give it a tool or a way to do that, it will take that request and be like, do I know how to work with this? Oh, yeah, I have a tool that can do that. So I'll just hand it off to that tool. And then I'll forward it down to that function call, get the data back, and then say, like, let me read this and see if I can decode the JSON to find the value and then return that answer to the user. So it'll kind of format the answer and then return it to the user.
Okay, cool, awesome, great. So thanks for setting the scene. Let's dig into it.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to start with something like really easy, I thought, which would be the Places API to find restaurants.
You might need to increase the font size or reduce your screen size. It's pretty small, I think.
Oh my goodness. How's that look? Does that look better?
Yeah, I think it looks better to me.
Okay.
People on the stream can maybe chime in and say if they can read it.
Yeah. That would be great if they can. So anyways, the first thing I want to do is create a new Genkit project. So I have this this empty directory here. I'll say npx genkit init. Initialize node, yes. I want to use Google Cloud, and I want to use Cloud Vertex AI. And I'm just picking out the deployment platform and the model providers that I want to use. So we'll give this a second to get set up. Set up on set. Generate a sample flow, yes, because I can never remember off the top of my head. So I'll say code.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's always like the hardest thing, right? Like getting up on stage and you're like, all right, now I'm going to do a live coding session. And you're like, wait a minute.
Yep.
What do I do here? So I believe what we want to start with, and I have a cheat sheet off screen. Don't tell anybody. Export. So I want to first define the tool, right? So I want to say define tool, and it takes a object in there. So the first part of the object is the name. And let's just call like this nearby search, right? Does that work? Cool. And then we want to give it a description. And you know how hard it is to like prompt a model sometimes, where you have to like kind of negotiate with the model and be like, look, this is like really what I want to do, but I can't necessarily do it because of this. And so, sometimes you have to like coax it in and be like, I really want you to tell me how to put the bullets in this type of order for the summary. And then it's like, all right, here's 75 bullets. And you're like, no, I want 4. And it's like, okay, here's 4 bullets, 3 words each. And it's like, no, give me 4 bullets, 10 words each, right? And like that's kind of with the same thing you have to do with tools, is you have to find a new way to prompt them. So we'll go ahead and start prompting this. So we'll say, used when needing to find a location nearby to a political boundary of a user's query. So the reason why I'm saying political boundary here is that a political boundary is not a XY coordinate. It's like Tracy, California, or like a street address. So we should probably say nearby to a political boundary or street address of a user's query.
Okay.
The location should not be in a longitude and latitude value. And the reason why we can't use a longitude or latitude value is that I've tried this let's just say I implemented this wrong the first time, and I was just passing x, y values into my my model, and it was telling me just like these random results, and I couldn't like really grok what it was doing, and it was because the nearby location search required a political boundary or a street address, not a longitude latitude value when I was
Oh,
querying,
interesting.
right? Yeah.
So that is so that's the API that you will be calling.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't necessarily know how to translate from a longitude latitude value to a the API doesn't know how to translate from longitude latitude to a political boundary or like a name, right? And then what we should say is the location should be used to find nearby places to wait. To the location should be used to find nearby places relative to the user's query. You can, and I think we just want to leave it at that. I originally wrote this for restaurants, but I'm modifying my prompt that I have here to not be specific to restaurants. And there's like a ton of things I put in there, like, oh, if like the user doesn't put in anything, like look for local restaurants, right? Because if I go to Hamburg, Germany, and I'm like, oh, I want to like eat at, I want to find a restaurant near me. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want it to return something that I have in Mountain View, California, right? I don't want it to return one of those big chain restaurants. I want something local. So next we'll add our input schema, which would be a Zod schema. So we'll say z.object. And then we'll say these are the arguments that you would pass into the query. So you kind of got to know what the query looks like first for the Places API. And generally what it is you could search for like restaurants or something, and you have to put in a place. I used a text string as my input request. And when I first did this, it gave me a curl request that was like very simple to use. And I remember scrolling through here and then finding it, and I don't know where I placed it. But it does exist. I think there's a text query value. No, I cannot find it right now. Use the Places API, Places search, nearby search. That's probably what I want. If I say text, anyways, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Oh, it's under text search. That's what it was. This is what I was using, a text search. So then you put in a text query, right? So you could say
Okay.
X in location. So input schema, we'll say place, and then we will have the type of place. Actually, let's change this to location, since we call it location in our prompt. Location, type of place, string, and then let's put in a output schema. And this is what the tool outputs to the user, right? And because it's a big giant JSON object, I'm just going to put unknown.
Okay.
So that kind of defaults to JSON.
Could you take the JSON and then define the output schema so that it meets the JSON schema, or is it just too complex?
I could do that. It's one of those things where I'd rather be lazy
Yeah.
than right, you know? And I have done that in the past, right? So you can generally like pass in the output JSON to a schema, to like what is it? Something to Pojo, plain old Java objects, right? I
Paco schema?
Yeah, so there's a way to get it to do the Zod schema, I think, and you can usually find a generator that would do JSON to Zod or something like that, and that's what I
Yeah.
would normally do. So if I say async input, so now this is where our actual function runs. And why is this angry with me? Oh, you know what? I didn't import it. That's why. Okay, there we go. So if we say async input, so this is the user input, right? So, and we're getting this from the input schema. So we'll say if input dot type of place equals undefined. Let's just, we'll return restaurants, right? Input dot type of place equals restaurant. So this is us just saying, hey, if the user doesn't define a type of place in the request, they just say, hey, find some places
Okay.
near me. We're saying, find restaurants near me.
Yep.
Because I assume that everybody is in search of food all the time, like I am. Places endpoint equals, and then we'll just grab this, grab this from the API. Here we go. And then let's do const text query equals, and then this is where we need to actually look at the query that we want to send. So this takes just a text query as the input. So here we'll say text query, and then we say input dot type of place near, or actually, yeah, we'll say near input dot location, and then we then send off the request to the backend. So I like to use, oh, I did not add that library. Let's add that library real quick. npm I, is it just Axios? I hope so. Axios dot, and I believe this requires a post request. So if we come back to our code, yep, you can tell by looking at the
probably
code
post.
request. Yeah, post.
Yeah.
We'll send it to the place endpoint, and then we'll do json.stringify the text query. And then I believe we need some headers. So we'll say headers, which will be another JSON object. And we'll say content. Oh, look at this. This is so nice. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Application JSON, since we're setting up JSON. I think XML is also supported. X Google API key, because this is an authenticated request. And then I believe I have a API key hidden on my terminal. So let me actually double check that. Echo maps. Yeah, that's what I call it. Maps underscore API key. Okay. Okay. Maps underscore API underscore key. So that's an environment variable that I have set, so that way I'm not giving everybody my Maps API key.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's very smart of you.
Security. Field mask. And then this is the field mask. So with the Maps API key, you can with the Maps Places API, you can essentially request like everything under the sun that the Maps API has about that location. And you can see here's like all the different types of fields that you can request. And it's like a lot of things, right? So you could be like,
oh, wow.
oh,
Serves
does it
brunch.
allow
Nice.
dogs,
Serves
right?
cocktails. That's amazing.
Yeah. So what I like to do is I like to pick like the least amount of things to help me get the job done. So I am going to, I used the wrong buttons on my keyboard. I'm going to just copy and paste some field masks that I already have. So this should get me the display name, the address, the price level, the photos, an editorial summary, and a Google Maps URI. So that way, if I wanted to like click into it and be like, "Ooh, where is this place?" I could just click in and find it really quickly. And that is pretty much it. And because I am a printf debugger, I'm just going to print out the data that we get back from the service. and then return that data. Return data. And then what is, response.data. There we go. And that will be the response to the LLM. So let's, I believe also that I need to export this, right? So if I say like export
I think so, yeah.
nearby search equals, oh, you know what? Const. There we go. Ho-ho. And then we should be getting at a spot where we can test it out. So if I say like prompt, help the user fulfill their life's dreams. No, fulfill their request. And then we can say on a new line, request, and this should be subject. We can actually change this so that way it like makes sense. Request, and then I want to use the big Gemini, so Flash? Yeah, let's use Flash, so that way it runs pretty quick. And all right, you ready? You ready for?
I am ready, and also I'm comparing notes. So while you were typing away, I used Gemini and Firebase and asked it to write the code for me, and it seems like you've done a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
It looks
right.
very similar to what I got here.
Nice. Okay, so we didn't rename our flow because who has time for that, right? Good naming conventions. So it's still called menu suggestion flow.
Yeah, like it's about restaurants. Right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's about nearby places. So if I could say like car washes near Mountain View, California, I hit run, and then we should be able to come here. And let's see if it calls the tool. Oh, you know what? It's not going to call the tool.
Oh, why is that?
Because we forgot to add in the tool to the flow. So here, there we go. We can define our tools, and I believe I can just say nearby search. So now.
Okay, but before you run the request again, let's look at the log or at the trace.
Yes.
And let's look at the log first. Can we see something in the log?
Let's see here. It says it was successful.
Okay.
Yeah, so it literally just calls Gemini Flash, and you can see that it doesn't put in any tools in the tools object. And then it responds with like, oh, of course I can help you with this. I just need to know more about you.
Yep.
Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What kind of car wash type are you?
Yeah. If you were a car wash, what kind would you be? So if we come back, let's try that again. Car washes near Mountain View, California. Oh no, 403 error. Okay, well this is good, right?
Okay. Auth error.
Yes.
Did you enable the Maps API for your project?
I did. I think I know what might be going on. And then this is sometimes a silly bug that occurs where you can't close the. Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I have. I think there is a bug on GitHub for it.
Okay.
So, yeah, kill your entire terminal.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's better than like getting stuck in Vim and having to reboot. CD documents, get Nohe tools. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to try this off camera to make sure that my Maps API key actually exists. It does. All right, so it's rebooting. Opening the tool runner. Let's just try it in the tool runner first. Huh.
Interesting.
Request failed with a 403. Axios, blah, 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 blah.
Did you
And this is...
Did you put the correct endpoint?
I thought I did. Let me...
You copied it, right?
I did. Let's see here. Xgoog. Oh.
Ah, there you go.
For once,
Gotta save those characters.
Spelling correctly. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Never spell correctly. That's the lesson.
Computers are the worst. They're always so nitpicky.
Yeah. So here we go. We have.
Oh, there we go.
This is
Nice.
This is the tool output, right? This isn't actually our flow output, right?
Yep,
So yeah, we can see El Camino Real, Caddy Car Washes. I've been there. I'm pretty sure it's a real places. These are just photos of that place. Sterling Auto Wash, all real places. So if we come back to our flows, we say, I want to get a car wash in Mountain.
You could probably say Mountain View.
I'm going to say Baltimore, Maryland, because it's a little bit easier for me to type. I don't know why. So here we go.
Thinking. Response. Oh, wow.
Yeah, there we go. So now if we go to the trace, we can see that it starts with help the user fulfill their request, and then you can see the tools that it has, right? And it passes in this description of the tool. So it knows.
So that is literally the description that you put into your tool, right?
Exactly. And that is like a prompt of a tool. Like, hey, use this when you need to do X, Y, Z, right?
Yeah.
And then if you come down and look at the candidates, the first return option is a tool request. So it says, oh, I know what I need. I need this tool here. So then it'll call that tool, which is nearby search for Baltimore, Maryland, for car washes. And then you can see that there's a bunch of things returned, right? So you got something in Glen Burnie, which is pretty close to Baltimore, Reisterstown Road, all of these different places, right? Dundalk, which is, I believe, on the east side. Yeah, so a lot of different things. And then you can look at Flash, and then Flash gets all of that as part of the context, right? So you can see, like, here's the original request, and then here is the response from the tool, and here's the content of that response. And it just gives,
so can you go back? Can you go back to the beginning of one of those nodes there? No. In what we sent to the model.
This one.
All right. So the stuff that we get from the tool. No, further down in the
down
input?
Here.
Yeah. Okay. So so everything that starts with places and then formatted address, Google Maps URI, and stuff like that. That is the output we receive from the Maps API, right?
Correct. Everything from output down is what we receive from the Maps API. Correct. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see how well it works. Can you run a query for me?
Oh no. Okay.
So find. I want to eat vegan food in the north of Hamburg. Let's see. Yeah, Germany.
How many Hamburgs are there?
I have no idea. Oh, that is so amazing because that is literally the nearest vegan restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, that is so cool.
Let's see what it passed into nearby search. Oh, north of Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so this is a bit of a contrived example as well, right? Because I think you could go into Google Maps and type in like the same thing, and it would just return it, right? It's not a stretch, right? So I think if we really wanted to stretch ourselves, we should say something like air quality in Hamburg, because you don't have a one-to-one translation of air quality of air quality in Hamburg to the request format, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so this works for you.
It does. It is pretty amazing. But even if I put this query, I want to eat vegan food near me. Yeah, I mean it does give me a list of things, right? So it does do that.
But that's
But I mean, like it's relatively easy to make the transition and say, okay, so now that we've seen how a tool works and how we can plug it into an LLM, now we can come up with use cases that go beyond what might be in Google Maps, for example.
yeah.
And of course, now you can put that into your application, right? So you don't have to send the user to Google Maps to get answers to the questions, but instead you could do that inside your application.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's like another cool step. I wonder if you said like, I want dog friendly restaurants in Mountain View, California. Like if that would format the query correctly, right? Because like that was another thing that you could filter by to get some results. I mean, Lazy Dog, yeah, I know that one is definitely like a dog friendly restaurant. Yeah, I guess it does just like filter it correctly. So if you're like at if you run like some sort of location based company where you like want to search the surrounding areas and you don't like you might have someone that's querying for like a very specific type of restaurant or something like Michelin star, dog friendly, places that only serve mushrooms, right? I'm sure like if Google Maps could also help you there, then like maybe it might help to have some sort of agent sitting there to be like, oh yeah, like type in like what you like the restaurant you want, or like you're just a general request to like our virtual concierge and like what's the results you can get, right? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So I've seen examples for tool calling where you define a tool and then use that tool to dig into a database, right? So I'm actually curious. So I mean, I could use RAG to do the database stuff, right? So um, I can compute the embeddings for the user's query, and then I can find the nearest matching documents from the database, get them back, inject them into the prompt, and then ask the LLM to answer. So why do you think would it be useful to connect the LLM to a database using a tool instead?
Oh, I think if you could connect your LLM to a database using a tool instead, and it's not always like the best thing to do, but for instance, let's say you have a lot of different parameters that users could filter on, right? So like let's say they want to visit somewhere that's family friendly, has good dining options, has this, has this, has this. Sometimes you can't fit enough of those parameters into an embedding, right? And
Yeah,
sometimes it's easier to just use your regular database filters to filter anyways, right? So if
yeah,
I say like, oh, I want to go eat somewhere that's family friendly, that's going to be a database flag, right? That's a Boolean option. Is family friendly? True, false, right? All throughout your database. And
yep.
I think you can coerce your data into a query that then represents the user's request without them having to check out a box. That might help, right? So it's a
Yeah,
way to help filter that query down to an API type of understanding of a query, right? So it's not like trying to fit everything into an embedding. You can do one or the other or both, where sometimes you could say like, hey, this is like really ambiguous and I'm trying to look for like semantically similar items representative of this request. Like, uh, so for instance, like if I was searching for, I want like a blue shirt, size extra large, and it's size like men's style, right? Right. So like not fitted. It would it could filter out my query and turn that request into like checkboxes that you would normally see on like the left-hand side of the website that you like check off. But if you wanted to say like, oh, I want a shirt that looks like this one, and you could drop in an image, that's where embeddings I think would come in handy. Yeah. So it's like one or the other, or like even a mix, or like I like this style shirt, but I want it in blue. And then the blue would be the checkbox, and then the picture of the shirt would be the embedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I mean, you could probably also go beyond retrieval, right? So you could, I don't know. So if we imagine that we implement a personal assistant, for example, and then we give it tools for looking up free slots on the calendar, or access to email, we could probably write a tool or multiple tools that allows the agent to look into our calendar, find free times, suggest those free times to a person that we want to meet with, and then monitor the inbox, see what they respond, and then negotiate back and forth.
Perfect. Yeah. Sorry, it just came to me. You're literally describing what I want to do next week, is just like build up a little bot so that way I can find time with you. Because I feel like when I want to make meetings with you, it's always like a game of calendar war where I got to like juggle my calendar and your calendar. And sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, can we meet later? Because I want to meet with this, with Peter, and he's only got these hours, and I've only got these hours, and So,
and then I'm going to write a bot that,
auto rejects
on my end. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Mine is just going to say no.
Yeah.
And that way I won't have to learn how to say no myself. I'll just teach it to a bot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a cool concept of having the tool execute actions on your behalf. I also like the idea of it like getting all the way to the point where it figures out the action that you want to execute and then showing that to you and being like, oh, do you want to like do this? And you can like confirm okay. So sometimes it's just formulating the request and then surfacing that request elsewhere, right? So I believe in Generate there is like a flag for return tool requests. And I believe this will not execute the tool requests, but just return them to you. So when true, return tool requests for manual processing instead of automatically resolving them. So you could format the tool request and for actions and then have it ask generally like, oh, I want to make time with Peter. And then I'll like search our calendars, right, for us and then say, okay, these are where the next appointment where you two align. Would you like to meet then? And then I could say like accept or deny. Whereas, sometimes it might just, if I give it all the agency to the tool, it might just auto accept. And then we might be meeting, when I'm out of office or something silly, right? Which is an error on me and my calendar grooming, which I'm not very good at keeping my calendar up to date. I may or may not be in the office next Wednesday, just FYI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
Hopefully the team's watching.
So let's take a quick look at some questions from the stream. So here is a question from Dario. He asks, hi, could you tell me how you would implement a group chat where each user can be identified by the LLM? So I could ask something like, summarize what user X, Y, and Z wrote. So I think that should be relatively straightforward, right? So I think the way how I would try to implement this is make sure that in each of the message that a user sends into the chat, you know who the user is, which you need to know anyways because you want to display their name and avatar. And then when you build this kind of like summarize feature, that feature would go into the chat history, filter out all the messages from that user, and then pump them into a context, and then ask the model your question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So that's when you query it, right? Is like so when you query, you can return everything from the database, including the user ID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you would format it to say like user ID colon blah 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 blah, and then you might have like the display ID. Yeah, that makes sense. I just see that I may have exposed my my API key by mistake.
I saw that too. I guess it might be somewhere in the requests in the console.
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
the
So
heads up. I am going to
yeah,
go
yeah, you should
delete
rotate your
all
key.
my credentials.
So next week when we have a meeting, like you'll be like, new phone, who this?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I got to do it. July 17th. Let me.
But okay, let's come back to the question about the chat summary. So I had the impression that you would try to use a tool to get the summary, right?
Is that me you're asking?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I
There's
could.
nobody else on the call.
I well, I wasn't sure if you're asking the chat. Yeah, I think yeah, I could use a tool to get the summary from. Yeah, the tool would make sense to like summarize. So if you're saying like summarize what happened in this chat, you could either use the tool, or if it's a summary button and you just always want to have that summary flow, just make
Yeah.
it part of the UI, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be easier to just pass in like the chat room, and then use a tool to filter based upon that one user ID.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. But I like the idea of using a tool, and then you could use natural language to do that, right? So
Yeah.
you could implement chat commands using slash commands, and then everything that's behind the slash command, you could just send it over to your general slash command answer flow, and that has a couple of tools which can plug into your chat history, and then say, all right, so the user wants to have a summary of what a specific person said, so I know how to do that. Or maybe the user asked something completely different, like, I don't know, what did Wow say in the beginning, which might be, well, it still needs to go in and get the history, but I don't know, like tell me when the meeting started, or tell me which documents were mentioned and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So I'm working on this knowledge base thing where there is a chat and you can do a Q&A with your knowledge base, and that is using RAG to implement that. But I can see how using slash commands might be interesting there as well, to do something more elaborate. Or if you go, let's say if you go into one of the articles that you saved in your knowledge base, and then you've got a command window, and in the command window you can type commands to the LLM. You can say, hey, generate me a summary of the document, or generate a list of 5 questions that help me to understand the concept discussed in this article, right? And that could then use a tool. Sweet. All right. So let's look at more questions. All right. So Dario said, I tried to add the user ID to each prompt, but the LLM sometimes hallucinates I can't see what it's behind the icon, the IDs into the response. Interesting.
One thing that I like to do is I generally use Gemini 1.5 Flash or Pro, I feel like that hallucinates less on me. And then the other thing that I like to do is sometimes I just like to ask really nicely to the LLM. It sounds silly, right? To be like, could you please not do this, right? But sometimes just saying like,
Yeah.
you know, please only use the context which you are given. Do
Yeah.
not add any user IDs.
Yeah.
That's yeah. That's
Or
the
maybe
best that I
maybe
can generally come up with.
offer a bribe, right? I'll give you $100, stuff like that. I tried to do that, and I arrived at a point where I had to increase the amount of money that
So
I was promising to give the model to prevent it from doing stuff I did not want it to do, and I ended up having to offer well beyond six figures in order for it not to do something.
so at least you could still offer it money, right? On my end, it's like, hey, you never paid. I'm going to send debt collectors after you.
Yeah, don't give it a tool for collecting your debt.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Other questions, let's see. In the beginning, Tech Planet asked, can Firebase handle augmented reality? And then Arthur asked, do you mean from a database perspective? So, yeah, interesting. I don't know. It's yeah. What do you think?
I don't know in like what context this
Yeah,
question
that's what
is,
I was
right?
thinking too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you're like hosting a world, right? Like I feel like you'd probably want to use something that lives longer than like 5 minutes, which is like the max request time for like V2 functions, if I recall correctly, or is it an hour now? Do you remember?
The timeout.
Yeah. I'm doing this because I'm in my
Um,
own virtual reality world right now.
Let me see. Timeout. The maximum value for timeout seconds is 9 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But so are you thinking of running a function continuously to host the augmented reality? Or what was your thinking there?
I guess we should if they respond, let's look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Tech Planet, if you have more context, then drop it into the chat and then we'll come back to your question.
I think Dario has another question.
Yeah, so it would be great to add meta information without it ending up in the response. It would be especially important if I need to give sensitive data and I don't want to expose it to the response. So I think if you deploy to Cloud Functions, then we redact the response. I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
Or is this the response to like the end user?
Yeah. Well,
Is it like I guess like my do you want to redact the sensitive information to the response to the end user or redact the response in the logs?
yeah, I think the thing I was referring to was redacting it into logs, which is a good idea, probably.
Yeah.
But to the end user, yeah, it's a different story. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like Darius thinking about a use case where, yeah, in the LLM response. Yeah, exactly. So he's probably thinking about a use case where you want to give the LLM a bunch of data and you want to make sure that it's not exposing any of that back to the user.
Yeah. Maybe I was gonna say maybe it would be like good to have like a filter step, like have two flows and then have one flow or like even like three flows, right? So you have like the top level flow that interacts with the user. Then you have like this mid-level flow that filters out the sensitive information, and then the base flow, which like does the thing, right? So it would like go here to the base flow, back up to and then up to the redaction step, and then back to the end user. But I feel like even then, the redaction step, I would want like a tool or something, right? To like actually redact, where it's like, oh, pull out any information that is in this format, because it might be a social security key or an API key, and you're live streaming, you just leaked it to a bunch of people, something like that, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, use your scissors as well. Sorry. Use your scissors and just cut it out.
Yeah. So that would be the way that I would approach it, but I feel like it's one of those things that you have to like put a lot of thought and energy into to make sure that it's done correctly, right?
Yeah.
And that's just gonna be hard to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I think there was another question. Let
If
me
you have
find it.
the results.
City SQR, I think, had a question that was... Okay, so it begins with, can you use the JSON output from the tool in your app and not the markup text from the model output? And I think the answer is yes, right? I think that is what... Didn't you use that in the Compass app?
Yeah, so in the Compass app, what I did was I actually returned the raw values back, and then I asked it to format those raw values into JSON that my app would expect. So
yeah,
that was done in the Compass app. You can also, if you want to, you could just change your prompt to say like, return JSON of the following format. Oh wait, hold on. I should probably fix this. Fulfill the request, return JSON in the following format. Place, string, photo, string, Google Maps, URI, string. And then that should do it if you just want to get JSON. But again, we did it in the Compass app, and it didn't take too long to do. So if I say like pizza near Baltimore, Maryland, let's see if it does it.
and you could also use the output schema. Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
But you could also use the output schema to define that, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, so the Rusky scupper is there, but if I wanted to, this actually comes in as a photo URI, which you then have to append the Google Maps key onto to then translate it to an actual URL that you can like visit. Sorry, Peter, I actually did not catch what you said. What did you say? Can you repeat it again for me?
I said instead of putting your schema here into the prompt, you could
put it up
essentially use the output schema and define it up there, right?
I believe so. There was an issue at one point where that was not working for me. I need to check that. That's actually on my to-do list. Where did I put my my to-do for Peter?
So another thing that I experimented with Gemini was, so I built a text adventure, and I want to stream the output to the user so that they can see the response from the game engine, as you were. And then at the end, I also want to send a piece of JSON. So I want to get the game state, right? So, and in the beginning, I was trying to tell the model, okay, can you please return everything in JSON? And then I was trying to stream that. And because JSON is like this, while you're streaming it, the JSON object is not valid for most of the time. And that means that you can't really parse it properly. And so the whole UI breaks. And I found out that you can tell the model to basically send you the regular response and then insert a dotted line, and then under the dotted line, put the JSON object with the game state. And then you can just stream the entire thing, wait until you get the dotted line, cut there, and then take the rest and parse that as a JSON object. So I think if you're creative in that way, you can achieve quite a lot. And to be honest, if you look at what we do when you define your output schema, for example, in .prompt, what it will do is it will transfer that into literally what you just typed there manually and tell the model, hey, this is the schema that you need to return. So it's literally just doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And there's also like a type conformance thing too, right, with output schema. So if you use the output schema, it appends that to the message, but then when you get that message back from the model, it'll say okay, here, are you able to fill out the type as it's defined, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we're almost at time. So I would like to hear from people on the stream what they would like to hear next. Any topics that you're interested in, please add them into the chat, or after the stream has ended, you can still leave comments in the comment section below. And it can be anything about Firebase. I actually got a request or a question from Rachel just earlier today, and she asked, hey, what's the way to suggest topics that you talk about on the stream? And I told her, well, give us a pun, and then you can come on. But just kidding. You can just suggest a topic. So folks on the stream, tell us what you like to hear about. And Nohe, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think you said it perfectly. The only other thing that I'd be interested in knowing is what kind of tools you would like to use with your LLM. So if it's the Translate app, the Translate API, Maps API, Drive, there's a handful of tools, and it'd be great to know what APIs you'd like to call from your LLMs. And Dario,
you could remote control your smart home, right?
Oh yeah, that'd be really cool. To have it forward your request to the assistant, and then the assistant ask in natural language to the backend to turn on and off your lights.
Yeah.
I think Dario has a question about evaluators, so maybe that will be a good one to investigate. Because I too would like to know about evaluators.
Oh yeah, we can totally do that in the next one, and we can bring on someone from the Genkit team to talk about that. That is a really great suggestion. Thanks, Dario. But we're happy to talk about non-Genkit topics as well. So this is Firebase After Hours is not strictly about Genkit. It just happens that Nohe and I are extremely excited about it at the moment. But we're happy to talk about other topics as well. Okay. Nohe, it was great chatting with you. Folks, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Take care. Bye.